Tonight, 12 city blocks evacuate after a construction accident on the TV tower. We'll take you there live. Plus, Floyd turns toward land. Maryland's emergency plans tonight on WB54 News at 6:30.
You're watching Baltimore's WB54.
Good evening, I'm Deborah Wiener.
And I'm Tony Harris. A dangerously tilting crane hundreds of feet up on a television tower forces evacuations of nearby homes and businesses.
And Floyd thunders toward the Carolina coast. Will Maryland feel this storm's fury? The news is next.
Crews were working on top of the Candelabra Tower in North Baltimore when the bolt snapped. The crane pulled loose from its foundation and is leaning precariously.
Now the difficult task of securing it is underway 1,000 feet in the air. The tower is on TV Hill in Hamden and Woodbury, serving 3 local TV stations and 1 radio station. Shannon Powell joins us live with a look at what's going on out there. Shannon.
Deborah, right now you can look behind me here, and believe it or not, things are finally getting back to normal in the Woodbury community. But this morning, fire and police officials were called to this area around 11 o'clock. They were called because one antenna on the candelabra was leaning and the crane attached to it was coming up from the base. It stands nearly 1,000 feet into the air. The TV tower has 3 antennas on top, one for WMAR TV, one for WJZ TV, and one for WBAL TV and radio. Recently, the stations started upgrading their systems.
The crane is actually loading on new antennas for our switch to high-definition television.
You know, when I saw them putting this up on Saturday with a helicopter lifting these pieces on top of the tower, it seemed, you know, awful risky.
Especially since around 20 bolts used to hold the crane to the platform started lifting on Wednesday morning.
The guys that were up there noticed that the bolts were starting to sever and were starting to give way, and that on the perimeter of the base of the crane where it was bolted down, it started to lean and tilt, and so that immediately caused the reaction of chaining everything down.
Emergency officials were brought in immediately.
Well, we were very concerned about the crane actually coming off of that tower, possibly sharing guidelines, and the possibility of perhaps the entire tower coming down.
And with the rain and Floyd threatening the area, weather is also a concern.
We've been told that high winds are not expected to start anytime soon.
But engineers from Structural Systems Technology Incorporated out of Virginia are busy straightening the crane and reestablishing it to the platform.
It was secured to the point where it wasn't going to go anywhere, but it was listing. That's been corrected by the use of come-alongs. There are several come-alongs that have been put in place. There are guide wires which are actually holding the crane. Some of the bolts have also been reestablished.
This is unusual. It's what you hope doesn't happen, but just to let everyone know, we did take every safety precaution. All 3 television stations took every safety precaution in advance.
That's why this was the scene on TV Hill today. Now, exactly what caused all these problems, no one knows for sure. But engineers tell us by 7 o'clock tonight, the crane will be bolted down and actually better than it was before. But it did cause a lot of problems in this particular area. And Jennifer Gilbert joins us now to tell us about the headaches that this whole day has caused for many in this area.
Well, Shannon, talk about covering a story in your own backyard. This story unfolded literally in our own backyard and under our own roof. It was indeed a very strange day on TV Hill.
A view from above shows the danger below, the reason they were taking no chances. The fear of a dangling crane nearly 1,000 feet in the air forced the evacuation of residents from more than 140 homes in Woodbury. About 100 people had to be evacuated from the Alice Manor nursing home. The sick and elderly were taken away to other facilities in Baltimore owned by the same company.
Well, when the police come in and tell you just to evacuate, we just ran and did what we could. We had a brief meeting and just went at it.
It was the biggest news story of the day. Ironically, several news organizations found themselves caught in the middle of it. 2 television stations were evacuated, including WJZ, which found temporary quarters in the WNUV WBFF studios.
Well, if it weren't for you guys, we'd be standing in the rain right now and trying to put a newscast together, and it wouldn't be working. So we really appreciate what you guys have done for us.
You know, we're always competitive with each other, but when you really get down to it, we're one big happy family.
At Medfield Heights Elementary School, parents had to pick up about 40 students because the bus couldn't stop in their neighborhood. It was challenging reaching parents, many of whom were evacuated from their homes.
Well, we thought it was a very calm crisis of all the crises we've had. We figured it was our pre-Floyd warm-up for tomorrow to make sure everybody was on their toes and ready.
For most of the day, it was a day of watching and waiting and wondering.
It's for what's going to happen to us. Going to break our house, our cars? What's going on? They're going to pay us for that?
They are questions that have often entered the minds of those who live in the shadow of the towers. Today, an antenna in a precarious position once again prompted the question, what if?
Now, we do have some good news to pass along tonight. The people in this neighborhood that have been evacuated, that were evacuated, are being allowed back in their homes tonight, as are the residents of that nursing home. The television stations, though, and another neighboring business are still off limits. That's the story outside of our studios tonight here on TV Hill. Deborah, back to you.
Jennifer, thank you. Tony?
Hurricane Floyd has smashed the Bahamas and terrorized Florida. Now it looks like Floyd's fury is aiming straight for the Carolina coast. Cynthia Vale has the latest on this dangerous storm from Charleston, South Carolina.
Electricity is out in Charleston, South Carolina. In fact, trees are already starting to come down in this area. And the heart of the hurricane is still not reached just off the coast of South Carolina. That's bad news for residents here who have bad memories of Hurricane Hugo 10 years ago.
This is my mother and my little nieces and nephews, and I want to make sure they're safe and don't have to worry and fret about the way it was with Hugo.
The Collins family joined more than 500,000 South Carolina residents who boarded up and left the coastline. Downtown Charleston is almost deserted. People are being smart after Hurricane Hugo 10 years ago. This shelter was almost to capacity, filled with people who remember Hugo's force.
It's just a bad thing that you work so hard for. It can just in just a short length of time be destroyed.
Hugo also taught lessons about emergency preparation, which is key to safety this time around. There's even a new building to house the command post, but these people can only do so much.
If we give them the information and they don't act on it, or if they wait too late, or if they're trying to play hurricane center and guessing where the storm can go, then they can risk their life.
Despite strong warnings like that one and these threatening waves, some people are still choosing not to avoid Floyd.
I feel crazy right about now being out here, but that's something I have to do.
The wind is picking up here. In fact, sometimes it's even difficult to walk out here at this point. A wind alert is in effect until 8 or 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. That means a very long and anxious night for everyone here. Reporting from South Carolina, I'm Cynthia Vale. Now back to you.
Well, Floyd's threat to us here in Maryland is very real. The governor has put us under a state of emergency in advance of the storm.
For the latest on where Floyd is and where he's headed, meteorologist Lori Penson is live in the Sky Center.
Thank you very much, Tony and Deb. We'll take a look at the latest coordinates for Hurricane Floyd. These coordinates put it 215 miles to the south-southwest of Wilmington, North Carolina. Top winds have died down to 115 miles per hour. Still a very powerful storm and continuing to push to the north at 17 miles per hour. The eye is clearly defined here. You can see where it is moving north, but is expected to turn to the north-northeast at least by Thursday evening. We'll take a look at some of the advisories that are up for you at this particular hour. This red box indicating that these the potential for tornadoes there. This is a tornado watch box because, as you know, as a hurricane tries to move on shore, the very powerful storms around the eye move on shore with it, and that's what can help spawn some tornadoes. We'll put this into motion for you as well. There are hurricane warnings now all the way north up to Chincoteague, Virginia. Tropical storm warnings looking for tropical storm force winds actually across our area where all of these little asterisks are located. Tropical storm warnings as we look for winds to increase within the 40 to 50 mile per hour range for us. Tropical storm force winds are extending at this hour 230 miles from the center. There's a lot of information on this map. Flash flood watches are also in effect throughout the evening hours and through Thursday for the potential for flooding. In addition, there is a high wind watch for Frederick, Carroll, Montgomery, Howard, and also Baltimore County. While we do have the threat of rain, that's very real, along with the potential for flooding and very gusty winds. Our precision cast information based on computer model data say that this will continue to span right up to the north and then make a turn over towards the north and to the east. Already we have reports that in Anne Arundel County they picked up as much as 2 inches of rainfall. Better than an inch of that fell within an hour, so be prepared. Now, my colleague, meteorologist Kirk Clyde, was actually down in Ocean City for Hurricane Dennis. Kirk, how does this actually stack up to Hurricane Dennis?
Well, Lori, what is really remarkable is how different conditions were today compared to 2 weeks ago when we were dealing with Dennis at Ocean City. During Dennis, 50-mile-per-hour winds, high seas, but very little rain. Today, wet is the word in Ocean City. But even with the rain, the wind was relatively light in the seas, just a few feet. Conditions nowhere nearly as rough as 2 weeks ago when Hurricane Dennis was lurking offshore. However, Dennis was a weakling compared to Floyd. Even though Floyd is still off the coast of South Carolina, Ocean City is already being impacted. On such a miserable day, why would anyone voluntarily spend time at the beach?
This is not a miserable day. This is a glorious day.
Beautiful.
We love this stuff.
What are you looking to see here?
All this out here.
The waves. It's very exciting.
To watch a storm, the ocean, the wind, and all of that, you really get to see the force of nature.
It's one thing to watch, but fishing in such conditions?
Forget about everything. This is the best it can come. I think I'm going to pack up and go today. I was planning on staying here until tomorrow, but things got picked up really fast.
And unlike during Dennis, so far, the beach has not been closed and no evacuations have been ordered in Ocean City. However, that could all change overnight and into tomorrow. The big problems could start tomorrow near high tide, which is at 12:44 Thursday afternoon. Today, the seas offshore were 6 to 10 feet. Tomorrow, seas up to 20 feet are possible off the Maryland coast. However, beach erosion should not be severe, at least at first, since the winds from Floyd will begin from the southwest instead of from the northeast. Deborah?
Thank you, Kirk. Well, as we said, the governor has already declared a state of emergency, but he's not the only one getting ready for Floyd. And as John Rydell reports, those who live near the Chesapeake Bay are taking extra precautions.
On the Severn River, it's anything but a sailor's paradise. Boaters are heading to shore, bracing for the worst. As Floyd winds its way north toward the Chesapeake Bay, sailors are not taking any chances.
We're ready for Floyd. We could sail through Floyd.
He can speak for himself.
You just have to constantly be changing how tight your dock lines are so the boat isn't held under or the boat lines don't snap or anything like that.
Boaters say the remnants from Hurricane Dennis were so severe that this pier almost disappeared underwater. And they say that combined with high winds causes real problems.
The big worry is actually the tidal surge and the water coming up real high and making sure that the dock lines are the right length to prevent anything from slamming together.
At Maryland's Emergency Operations Center in Pikesville, they're carefully tracking Floyd's every move. Since the governor has already declared a state of emergency, he's placed the National Guard and state police on standby.
Right now we're looking at an impact on the bay.
Residents are being advised to keep close tabs on weather conditions and simply use common sense.
If you're in a low-lying area and if it's likely to flood on a voluntary basis, we urge people to leave those areas.
John Rydell, WB54 News at 6:30.
And residents are also being urged to prepare a disaster supply kit that includes bottled water, canned foods, and a battery-powered radio.
While Maryland braces for Hurricane Floyd, several school systems have already decided to close tomorrow. Anne Arundel County schools are closed tomorrow with a liberal leave policy in place for employees. Schools in Calvert, Talbot, and Charles counties are also closed. For the latest on Hurricane Floyd, tune in tonight for Fox 45 News at 10. We'll have live reports on the storm as it approaches the Carolina coast with updates from Lori Penson on the power of the hurricane.
Ahead on the news at 6:30, attorneys for a man charged with killing his children hint how they will defend him.
And Baltimore voters overwhelmingly support this Democrat for mayor. Martin O'Malley's big win next on the news at 6:30.
The website report is sponsored in part by John Stupak and Associates, your malpractice attorneys.
Every child should be healthy and carefree. Every story should have a happy ending. But medical mistakes can shatter the life of a child and family. While you can't put all the pieces back together, you can get the justice and compensation you deserve. If you think your child is brain damaged or has cerebral palsy as the result of a medical mistake, call for a free consultation. Stupak and Associates, Make your voice heard. Call 410-461-9962.
Reason number one to shop CarMax, low superstore prices. Why do superstores usually have the lowest prices? Because they sell in volume. At CarMax, we have a great selection of new cars and the highest volume used car stores in the country, up to 10 times more cars than the average dealer. So we can offer below Blue Book prices on most cars, haggle-free. For great low prices, come to CarMax, the auto superstore. Discover the CarMax difference today.
Ed has a slice. That's why he banks at All First. We know there's a life attached to every account. We know that everyone's goals are different. So we make things as flexible and as human as we can. We put you first.
Oh, yeah.
Because what works for you may not work for Ed.
Tempo.
Golf, for instance.
Closed captioning of the news at 6:30, provided by Precision Tune Auto Care, where you can get a quality oil change for only $11.90 on most cars. That's right, just $11.90 at Precision Tune Auto Care. Tonight's website report is brought to you by Hyundai. Driving is believing.
A new force to be reckoned with. Motor Trend. Reliability, it's guaranteed. Edmunds.com. God's own warranty plan. Confident, secure handling. The ride is also excellent. A solid piece of fresh and classic.
The Hyundai Sonata. It seems wherever it goes. Praise from the automotive press is never far behind.
Driver, April 99.
The Sonata from Hyundai. Backed by America's best warranty.
In the shooting deaths of his 2 children is scheduled to undergo a psychiatric evaluation. Attorneys for Richard Spicknell II requested the test as well as a CAT scan. Spicknell's lawyers also asked a judge to impose a gag order on prosecutors. Spicknell is facing several charges, including 2 counts of first-degree murder. Police say Spicknell made up a carjacking story to cover the shooting of his young children last week.
It is the day after the Democratic primary, and Martin O'Malley is a big winner. Baltimore is still comprehending the stunning outcome of yesterday's election. But by 8 o'clock this morning, the Democratic nominee was out on a street corner greeting Baltimoreans and basking in the afterglow of a nearly 30% victory.
I never once doubted that people are smart and that the voters of the city would understand our message and wade through the other stuff. And they did, boy, in overwhelming numbers.
Martin O'Malley will face Republican nominee David Tafaro in the general election November 2nd. Yesterday's landslide victory brings us to tonight's website question. Tell us what you think. Are you surprised by the huge margin in votes between the Democratic mayoral candidates? Log on to our website at WNUV54.com. Your comments may air tomorrow night on the news at 6:30.
Well, as you just heard, businessman David Tafaro picked up the Republican nomination for the mayor, and he will face Democrat nominee Martin O'Malley in the general election in November. Tafaro won easily over opponent Carl Adair with 89% and 6% for Adair.
Coming up next on the news at 6:30, Martin O'Malley will join us live as tonight's newsmaker.
Hear what he has to say about his landslide victory next.
If IKEA can update this classic,
I love surprises.
Imagine the possibilities for your home. Furniture provided by the new IKEA catalog.
What a close call with my overactive bladder. Having to go suddenly. Needing to go so frequently. But that time, I almost didn't make it. That did it. I asked my doctor about Detrol.
Overactive bladder is a medical condition. Today's prescription Detrol is proven effective to treat it. Detrol reduced bathroom visits by 2.2 times in 24 hours versus 1.1 times with placebo. 1.2 fewer wedding accidents occurred with Detrol versus 0.8 fewer with placebo. Similar decreases over 24 hours. If you have certain types of stomach, urinary, or glaucoma problems, do not take Detrol. The most common side effect is dry mouth. Some others may include dry eyes, headache, constipation, and indigestion.
Enjoy the movie?
Thanks to Detrol.
Ask your doctor about prescription Detrol, proven effective to treat overactive bladder.
If you want to find a really great deal every day, you gotta know where to look. Look no farther than McDonald's. Get a zesty Cajun McChicken sandwich or a juicy double cheeseburger for just 99 cents. Add America's favorite fries, and it's just $1.99 every day. Your search for a great deal is over.
Yo, dog. Can I use your ride?
Ask your mother.
Hi, Mom. Can I use the car?
I gave it to Jenny.
Well, I have the keys, so...
Mom said I could have it.
Nope, I get the car. Dad said I'm driving away. Bye.
Mom, Dad gave the car to Kyle. Did you give the car to Kyle?
Hey, Dad, I need a ride home.
Pick up Billy.
Introducing the AT&T Family Plan. Unlimited local wireless calls between family. Up to 5 wireless phones plus your home phone.
Kyle!
Talk all you want. Your family.
In a stunning primary victory, Martin O'Malley wiped aside his underdog status by delivering a clear and resonant message on public safety and emerged as the presumptive future mayor of Baltimore and, by extension, the city's top crime fighter. Martin O'Malley is tonight's newsmaker. Congratulations, sir.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Tony.
Before I ask you a question, let's take a look at the numbers, the final numbers from last night. There you have it, 100% of precincts, Martin O'Malley, big check there, projected winner. De facto winner, 53% of the vote. Wow.
Yeah, big stuff.
Was there ever a moment during the campaign, let's say in the waning days, when you thought, A, that victory was attainable, and that B, victory in these numbers was attainable?
I thought in the closing weeks that we were about mid-40s. Joan Carter Conway was telling me, no, Martin's going to be between 51 and 54.
Are you kidding me?
On the final weekend. No. And you know what, Tony, as strange as this may sound, I never would have gotten into this if I didn't think that I was going to win it. And I thought that from the first day of this campaign, I never doubted that the voters wanted change and new leadership. I never doubted that they'd be intelligent enough to sort through the other stuff and appreciate what's best for themselves and their families. So in that sense, you know, I really never doubted that we would win this because one of the reasons I got in was I felt that that message and that candidate of change and new leadership that I knew the city wanted was not in the race. But I never thought that we would take off as quickly as we did. I never could have dreamed that influential people like Pete Rawlings and Barbara Hoffman would have been attracted as early as they did, and only Joan Carter Conway called the majority like that.
I know it's just the day after, but what do you do now? What do you do?
I think two things. Number one, you thank the real story, which is the goodness and the fairness of the people of Baltimore City. So we did that this morning. And then I think it's time to reach out to those people who supported Carl and Lawrence and Mary Conaway and bring us all together for the general. I had a great conversation with Sheila Dixon, another big winner. I was going to ask you about that. And Sheila and I are really looking forward to joining up and doing some of the outreach and the sort of neighborhood events that the short, condensed campaign didn't allow for. And we're going to do that in the general.
Okay, before I let you go, I want to play for you a soundbite that I suspect you're going to hear a lot of in the months ahead. Let's take a look and listen to this.
Hear me, Baltimore. 6 months after I take office, this open-air drug market and 9 others like it across our city will be things of our city's past.
Martin, quickly, how do you do that? Remind us, and then remind us again.
You do it by changing enforcement priorities so that we start improving the quality of life on all our corners. What does that mean? That means encouraging officers, supporting officers to get out of their cars and address the sort of low-grade violence that attends all of these open-air drug markets. Second thing we need to do is start expanding programs for our kids instead of cutting the recreation budget every year. And the third thing we do is we have to expand opportunities for drug treatment. I mean, those are things that the mayor can do right away. There's other reforms, Tony, of the whole criminal justice system. Some of them have begun, some of them have begun slowly. But it all begins with a change in political will, and that's what happened yesterday.
Martin O'Malley, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks.
Well, it took a hurricane, but something finally stopped the Orioles. Bruce Cunningham has details next in sports. And Rod Woodson is ready to take on his old teammates this weekend. Bruce has all the details next.
By the Hall of Famer, Rod Woodson.
I've always been set in my ways. So when Subaru told me they were changing my Outback, I was a tad concerned. Truth is, they just made it better. This next generation Outback's got a stylish new body, quieter